I had something bugging me today, and it's based on the movie I watched last night. So last night I watched this "What Keeps You Alive" thing, and it's dumb. Somebody points out in the comment section that it has an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I thought, really? So I went and looked, and it brought to mind something around when Captain Marvel came out, and I said it had a high Rotten Tomatoes score. And the comment was made of, well, go read the reviews, they're not that glowing. Which is true. But the reviews for the movie I talked about last night weren't glowing either. And we're at this weird juncture where I think we have to realize there's no consensus with movies. I know when I was a teenager and I grew up and I was going to horror movies all the time, and whether it was a Friday the 13th movie or it was the 1987 remake of The Blob, it was 87 or 88, or it was Pet Sematary, whatever I saw, I knew the reviews were going to be bad. And I kind of counted on Siskel and Ebert sitting there and going, this movie's gross. This is disgusting. This is what's wrong with youth these days. And I'd go, that's my movie. That I'm going to go and see. And so the internet's brought about, and we have this aggregator, Rotten Tomatoes, and people mention IMDb, which is more accurate in that it gives a score out of 10. But, it's strange because when it comes to an audience score, so for instance with What Keeps You Alive, the audience score is 57%, which qualifies as rotten, right? Qualifies as fans weren't overly impressed, and yet that's over half positive reviews. The other thing is, what qualifies as a positive review? So if I say, oh, this movie's fantastic, you really need to see this, the guy next to me goes, I don't know, parts of it were crap. There's some really stupid parts, but I guess it's okay. Yeah, you should probably see it. My review and his review, the way that Rotten Tomatoes figures it out, it's the same. They're both positives. That's 100% between the two of us. There were plenty of reviews that mentioned lapses in judgment, lapses in common sense in the movie, and then some of the negative reviews hit on a lot of the same points that I did last night when I was ranting. Both ranting live at the movie as if it could hear me, and then while I was doodling on my board and recording with this webcam last night. So the question that I find myself asking is, are we at a stage where we need to find some other new way of doing this, or again, do we just make up our own minds? One of the reasons that I on this channel started doing movie reviews is because of the fact that, my taste in movies is different, and what I qualify as a good movie is different. And again, it's I grade a movie as much as anything on how does it work towards its genre. A good example of this is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The original, I hated it. I was bored. I was bored during Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I remember watching with a friend of mine when we were, I don't know, I think we were 15, and my friend rented it from the movie or the video store, and like my parents and his parents both said, oh, the movie's terrible. You don't want to see that. That's just gross. So we watched it, and we were just bored. Bored. We fast-forwarded through most of the movie. And we're like, oh, okay, what's going on? She's still screaming in the woods. It's still dark. We hear a chainsaw. She's screaming in the woods. It's still dark. So no. And we were bored during the whole movie. Now, if you look up Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, people talk about how it's this fantastic Tobe Hooper original classic fantastic movie. We hated it. We got through it in probably 45 minutes because we hated it. There was a lot of fast forwarding going on with that movie, and I've never watched it again. I have never had any interest in watching it. Then they do the remake with Jessica Biel, and it is disturbing. It's violent. It's vile. It's not a happy movie. It doesn't leave you feeling good, but I own it. Because I thought in its genre, I thought it did very well. And I thought it tried something different. And I thought what worked for me with the movie was that Jessica Biel very clearly had been dressed up to be, the sex object of a movie that didn't have any sex in it. And that's not by accident. And I thought it was jarring how attractive she was and how ugly the rest of the movie was, in its gore and its violence and the horror of it. And I thought, that juxtaposition right there, that's fantastic. If it's accidental, it's a fantastic accident. If it's on purpose, that's great. That is really solid. That you go, here's this beautiful girl, and here's this really ugly, vile stuff going on in the movie, so that when she comes into the next scene and she looks great, you're gonna go, I don't know how I feel right now. This seems off, and it makes parts of the movie seem really off, and it threw me at the end. The ending of the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I thought was well done. Guess what? The reviews for the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, newish, horrible, comparatively speaking, with the original. And then they had one that came out not that long ago, a few years ago. I don't think there's a review on this channel for it, which starred Alexandra Daddario, and it kind of toys with this idea of, it does away with all of the sequels, and it dives into the idea that, the family's passed away, and Alexandra Daddario's character is handed the keys for this house where all these horrible things happen, and she's related to Leatherface and this horrible family that's done horrible things. And again, it was a very effective movie. I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed it. The reviews, not great. So, my point with all this is simple. My tastes when it comes to movies are going to be different. And if I'm going to tell you guys about a movie, I don't expect other people to necessarily share my views on it. I think this is part of the reason why I like Red Letter Media so much. They had a best of the worst. Their best of the worst episodes are some of the funniest stuff on the internet. Absolutely, easily, some of the funniest stuff in the history of the internet. And they had a battle of the genres, which was 3 different genre movies. And at the end, they had to say which movie captures its genre the best. Meaning, not which is the best movie, but which one's truest to its genre. Which I thought, that's what I try to do when I grade movies. That's what I try to do. Like, people ask, well, how could you have liked Captain Marvel? Because I think it establishes this new wing of the universe. This new idea. It takes things further out. It does what Guardians of the Galaxy did in a more serious manner. It means that we're going to get more of the space and alien stuff in the future, which I know is going to put some people off. I know it'll bring in some other characters. I think eventually they want to try a Howard the Duck movie. I think they secretly want to try it. I think they're scared to do it, because they think that's the shark jumping part. That's what they think they're going to be doing if they do that. But I genuinely have a tremendous amount of respect for movie makers in this day and age, whether they have a huge budget or a low budget. And even with the movie last night, the acting was good. There were parts of the movie that were okay, and it just, once the lapses in logic started, they just all compounded on each other and all piled on each other. And it's the kind of stuff that maybe 82% of reviewers can go, it's fine, turn your brain off. But it's weird because people won't turn their brain off for a movie if it has Jason Voorhees in it. And I think people go in with already an opinion before the movie starts. And I try not to do that. And I know people are going to say, well, Shannon, you did that with Captain Marvel because, Brie Larson. Not really. Because there have been times where I've gone in with a positive or negative opinion of an actor and come out going, oh, I was wrong about that. And TV shows too, where I'm like, oh, that person's in that show. I'm going to have to watch that. That's going to be great. And then I watch it and I go, oh, no, I don't need to watch this. I remember after the original series of Twin Peaks was done, it had run its course. It was all finished. and I was upset because it had only been on for a couple of years. I was like, really, you're going to end it that way? That's it? That's stupid. But I was so impressed with the acting on Twin Peaks that I followed every single actor and actress. I knew all their names, so if they were in any movie, I would rent it, I'd go watch it, any movie. And most of them made pretty smart decisions. Heather Graham, who went on to have pretty big roles in movies like Boogie Nights, as a good example, Swingers, some of her movies were big misses. So as much as I thought she was fantastic in Twin Peaks, no. Sherry Lynn Fenn as well. She was in that horrible boxing Helena movie, just awful. And as much as I loved her in The Wraith, and then in Twin Peaks as Audrey Horne, no, that movie was awful. So that's what I try to do when I talk about movies. And I have tried at times. I know there was a point where I tried to have a database, and this was years and years ago, where I tried to have a database of movies that I had reviewed, that where you could look up where did Shannon grade these movies. And honestly, there's a part of me that thinks, if I could figure out a way to do that again, even if it was just a spreadsheet that was a Google document I could share with people, maybe I'd give that kind of thing a shot. I should. It's something I could definitely do. I think it would be fun. And just because I've seen so many movies over the years. So, yeah, I can be a fanboy at times, but I can be brutal too. It depends on the flick. And I guess my one thought with all this is I still use Rotten Tomatoes on movies, but I have started, and I'm not suspicious for the same reason as other people. It's not an agenda thing, it's an advertising thing. That's where I have concerns with Rotten Tomatoes. It's not they're trying to push this agenda or that agenda. It's more of in trying to appeal for the dollars they can get from advertisers. And as a YouTuber, I can understand that. But there are times where it feels like they may be pushing a movie not necessarily because of its quality, but because of maybe there's more of an advertising interest in them pushing it. So that's as close as I'll get to conspiracy or anything like that. That it's more of a capitalist thing than it is a... And you know what? I'm going to say this too, before I finally go to bed tonight. There's always been talk of this, women taking over in movies, and how it's this whole... how do I put it? It's this giant... And like Kathleen Kennedy hasn't helped with Star Wars, clearly, saying the Force is female. I don't... Okay. It sounds like something you'd say about a police TV show where all the cops are girls. And there was a cop show like that once called Sirens. I don't think you could get away with that name now. It was a good show, but women cops, so nobody watched it. Unless it's Cagney and Lacey. But even nobody watched that either. They just kept bringing it back, because every time they took it off the air, women would write in and say, "We hate you, CBS." And then CBS would put it back on the air. I don't think that there's a big movement in Hollywood towards women in movies for altruistic reasons. I don't think there's a movement in Hollywood towards it because Hollywood wants to make things right. I think it's all about money, honestly. As a YouTuber, so once you reach a certain subscriber count, you can start looking for sponsorships. What I learned very quickly through 2 different sponsorship programs provided through your YouTube numbers or Instagram or Twitter, 90% of the advertising that they offer you is for women. It's makeup, it's fashion, it's different services. It's all geared towards women. And women are very large consumers. So I think it's a capitalist thing more than just men are evil, men are bad. I think there's more money to be made if we get women to go and watch this than there is if we necessarily appeal to the men. And it reminds me of something that I was told decades ago, when I used to go to the bars, and they never ID'd the girls. So I would get ID'd every time I went in, and I said, "You never ID the women in this bar." I said, "I'm pretty sure some of those girls are 17, and this is before they really strictly enforced it." And the bartender said, "If men are in a bar, men are in a bar. But if women are in the bar, the men will show up." Meaning, yeah, there might be some underage girls here, but as long as we have girls in the bar, the guys will come in and they'll drink and they'll spend the money. So maybe on some level, Hollywood's gone in that direction, which is, you know, if the women come out, they'll bring their boyfriends anyways, so we're still going to make a lot of money on this. That's how I see it. I don't see it as being some big plot for women to take over the world or overthrow men. I think it's all about money and capitalism. And I think everything's about money and capitalism right now. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And what you guys think of having like a database. And you know, I look at what Red Letter Media does with movie reviews and that kind of thing. And I'm not going to try to copy what they're doing. But it would be fun sometimes, especially during the summer when hockey's not on, to get together with people and watch some stupid movies and then have a talk we can have about it after that doesn't tread on their material, you know, so do something that's unique and not what they do. I'd have to figure something out because again, I don't want to tread on what I think is fantastic hallowed ground, which is Red Letter Media. Let me know your thoughts. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, just tapping upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.